Alright, so now we're on the last example of 90. This is 90.3. And this is where those two forms of cosine of 2a come in. There's three forms, but the last two are the ones that we're going to use for these last two identities. Cosine of 2a is equal to 1 minus 2 sine squared of a, is one of them. And then the other one is cosine of 2a is equal to 2 cosine squared of a minus 1. These are the two that I told you you could put on your card if you wanted to, or if you thought you could remember how to develop them, you didn't need to put them on your card. That's fine. Alright, so in this case, we're going to solve for sine. So I'm going to bring this guy over and take this one over here. So I have 2 sine squared of a is equal to 1 minus cosine of 2a. And now we're going to solve, we want to solve for sine, so we need to get rid of this 2. And then we'll take the square root of both sides. So the square root of sine squared is sine. And this will be plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine of 2a divided by 2. And then at this point, and you have to show this because it doesn't just magically change. It's let a equal x over 2. You have to write that in here. Otherwise, the reader would never know why the variable magically changed. So when we do that, this becomes sine of x over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine 2 times x over 2 divided by 2. And then you can probably see what's going to happen. These 2's will cancel. So the form that you'll put on your card is sine of x over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine x over 2. Okay, so this is what goes on your card. Now the plus or minus depends on what the angle is, because when you're finding like the sine of 75 and you'd put 150 over 2, the sine of 75, that's in the first quadrant, so this would be a positive sign. This sign right here is always going to depend on what the angle is and whether you're looking at sine or cosine. Okay, so on this one, just like we did on the top one, we're going to solve this one for cosine of a. So this time it's positive here, so I'm just going to leave it there, but I'll write it on the other side. So that would be equal to cosine of 2a plus 1. And then we divide both sides by 2. So we have cosine squared of a is equal to cosine of 2a plus 1, all of that divided by 2. And I'm going to start with that on the next page. Cosine squared of a equals 1 plus cosine of a divided by 2. And then again, we have to make the substitution. Let a equal x over 2. After we take the square root, that is. And this will be a plus or minus. So the square root of that is cosine of not a but x over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of x over 2, and all of that divided by 2. And I left out the 2 right here. and a 2 right here. Sorry about that. So the 2's cancel, and we have cosine of x over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of x over 2. And again, the sign here, you're not going to put plus or minus. If this is an angle that comes out when you divide it to be between 0 and 90, it'll be a positive cosine. If it's between 90 and 180 or 90 and 270, it'll be a negative cosine because of the sign of the adjacent side. So this all depends on